You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. James Fox, Loop Sports, on the phone. The winter meetings are over, James. Nothing but excitement, right?
Yeah, it was a good time. I'm sure everybody was refreshing their phones and Twitter just like I was, like every 5 seconds to see pretty much nothing happen, except for Ivan Nova. So, you know.
My 13-year-old told me I'm on my phone too much, and she's always on her phone. Because all I do is I just refresh Twitter, search White Sox on Google News, go and look up such and such, check you. I mean, and I'm just like, at some point, somebody's going to say something, and then some idiot who just opened up a Twitter 5 days ago writes something like, guaranteed, Harper's confirmed to the White Sox, and I want to kill those people. I want to find them all, I want to round them up, and I want to tie like a rock to their legs, and I want to throw them off a pier.
Yeah, the mute button is good for those people.
Yeah, I guess mute button. I just answer with
Twitter
anger. Mute
button is good.
Yeah, and now just before you called, I was all ready to talk to you, and I'm doing a little 108ing, a little shout out to those guys. And my beer exploded on me.
Ooh.
You know, I got a beer fridge back here, and I got one of the bottle openers that's attached right to the bar. You know, it's one of those things that you see, you know, you just put it right up in there and just pop the top off.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the one that was sitting in there must have, I don't know what's wrong. I'll have to have some kind of beer expert come in here and explain to me why that's the only bottle that exploded tonight, because it's not my first one, but it just shot everywhere.
Did you talk to Sox Nerd yet or no? Because he could probably figure it out, I would think.
You know what? He's going to be on in a second. Maybe I'll remember to ask him that. I'm sure he'd break down the statistics on that and tell me which ball player in a White Sox clubhouse had more beer spilled on him than any other ball player. All right, so what do you think of these guys? We got Nova. I mean, he's the big guy. What do you think about that acquisition? Because I don't think they gave up anything. I think it was brilliant because you give up nothing, you get a replacement for Shields. I think he's probably a little bit better than Shields. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they didn't give up much. I mean, he doesn't strike out really many people, but he doesn't walk anybody, which is something that they need. They need a guy that's going to go 6 or 7 innings consistently. I mean, they kind of needed a better version of James Shields. I mean, he comes highly regarded, I guess, in the clubhouse. He's interested in working with some of the young guys. You know, it's $9 million. That's about what a guy like him costs. I think, we kind of talked about this, I think, a month ago or whenever the last time that I talked to you is I kind of thought that their first move would be just like some veteran innings leader. I thought they might sign the guy, but, after seeing like Lance Lynn sign for like 3 years, $30 million, that was like one of the guys who I would have been interested in. But I don't think the Sox are in position right now to hand out 3-year contracts to pitchers like that. So, you kind of see a trend. They go out in the market. They realize this is probably the better move. They'd rather give up no prospects and pay a guy for one season. It was kind of like the same thing with the Colome deal. I mean, I'm sure they're out in the relief market right now, but you see these guys getting 3 and 4 year deals. I mean, go get a guy that's pretty proven in Colome on a 2-year deal. So that's kind of the ballpark they're working with, I think, until a lot of their pitching inventory gets up in the next 18 months here. They gotta find out what they have. They gotta find out what they have and what they're, going to keep going forward, what they're going to get rid of, and then what they're going to need.
They're getting used a little bit. Everybody knows they have money. Everybody knows that they're contending for Harper and Machado. So I think that every time they just go, hey, we just want to just find out where this pitcher is, they're instantly put out on Twitter as interested. And then it's like the guy gets signed. Like Yuris Familia got signed at 2 a.m. the other night after the White Sox have been reportedly interested in him at 11 p.m. Somebody was like, you know what? We got to get him before morning because the Sox might get him. And some of these guys are getting really good deals, and they don't make sense for the White Sox because you're not interested in some of these guys for that kind of money at this point. And I think that they're getting used a little bit.
Yeah, no, they are for sure, but they always do because they don't comment on rumors. But it's easier now. I mean, Sox and Phillies especially. It's like, oh, my clients, got interest from those teams, and interested could mean checked in. Like I'm sure the Sox called your Familia's agent and said, hey, we might be interested in doing something. But I mean, you start talking about 3 years, that's where it ends. But then it leaks out to a reporter that the Sox are interested. It's kind of like the same thing. Like they're interested in Adam Ottavino right now, who, had a bit of a breakout season in Colorado. He's really good, but I don't think the Sox are going to give multi-year deals to 32-year-old relievers. So
they called me the other day, and I put it out there, and since then I've had three offers. But I mean, who really wants to play for the Rays? I don't. I'm not. They're all of a sudden I'll just be stuck in a shift. They'll use me as a platoon player. I'm not interested in it.
Yeah.
So what do you think of my theory? And I kind of floated this, but it's becoming even more clear as the winter meetings continue. But earlier in the week, we mentioned on our regular show, this is kind of our extra one to kind of wrap things up. I mentioned that I think what the Sox are going to do is they're not going to get into bidding wars with teams, because they're not at that stage yet. Rick Hahn's really looking at this as year 3 of a 3-year rebuild. Yeah, I'll go after the big fish like a Harper or Machado, but you're not going to see me going after some of these mid-level guys. If a guy gets mentioned, there's 3 teams after him, and he wants money that I'm not willing to spend or years that I'm not willing to give, we'll just wait and we'll get the leftovers in February.
Yeah, I think that's right on. And I do think, look, like, this is serious. And I tried telling people that I thought they were serious this time, even though, I'm still a White Sox fan. Like, there's part of the skepticism I understand. But, I mean, for the last two years, they've been telling you, like, this was the plan. They were going to do this. Now, my thing were these 2 top free agents going to be interested in the Chicago White Sox? I didn't know. I mean, my standard was basically, when the table gets set, like, are you going to have a seat at it? Like, are there going to be guys coming in for meetings and watching presentations with 4 teams? Like, you better be one of those 4 teams, and you better have, like, the highest or close to the highest offer. If one of these guys chooses to go elsewhere, well, then, I mean, I don't really think there's much you can do about that. I don't think you can blame ownership if Bryce Harper decides to take less money to go to the Los Angeles Dodgers instead. But I will tell you, I think the Sox are in pretty good shape here. Better shape than I would have said, 10 to 14 days ago.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Dave Marin's on the line. He goes by @SoxNerd on Twitter. A lot of you people follow him. He also sits in the scoreboard during the year and puts up all those great stats for everybody to see during the games. And he likes to try his stats out every once in a while on the Sox in the Basement podcast, along with Twitter.
Yes, sir.
Dave, how are you doing tonight?
Great, sir. How are you?
I'm doing good. What'd you think of those winter meetings?
Well, it was just a lot of hurry up and wait. You get there with all the rumors and hoopla, and basically what you end up with is Nova and a Rule 5 guy that you trade away.
All right, so let's talk about these guys that we got. Ivan Nova. What do you got interesting on him that we picked up? I like the deal. I like the fact that you pretty much gave up nothing to get a guy that's better than James Shields, because he gives up less walks and he can get really streaky. And I love that his whip is more below 1.30 than above it, like Shields has been over the last couple of years. What can you tell me about him?
Well, they're getting a workhorse, and in doing some digging on him, I found out that he's pitched at least 161 innings in each of the last 3 seasons. And it's been a while since the Sox have had a right-hander do that. And that right-hander's name was Gavin Floyd from 2008 to 2012.
All right.
So this guy's going to sop up some innings, which is, I guess, what they got him to do. How about, I'll give you a negative one that probably won't make the scoreboard. The guy committed 5 errors last year, which is a lot for
5 errors by a pitcher?
Is there, right? That's just one of those things where I'm going through it. I'm looking at his stats, and that number really sticks out. The last pitcher that had that many for the Sox was Jose Contreras, who had a league-leading 6th in 2007. And Nova did lead the National League in errors, by the way. So I guess on those comebackers, that'll be kind of a little bit of an adventure.
Yeah, but think about it. Think about how, every time that it kind of bounces off a glove real quick, they don't give an error all the time for that,
No.
They don't. Otherwise, pitchers would have him all the time. So he's got to be screwing up things like throwing the first base.
Yeah, or maybe that step throw on those comebackers, he's not real good. Because there's some guys who have a mental block about throwing to first. John Lester being one of them, right? So hopefully we don't find that out, right? Hopefully he's fine. So
I love the fact that you're like, that's not making the scoreboard.
no, that is not. Here's one thing that really stood out to me about him is his career in June. 14-6 with a 3.28 ERA in 28 games, 27 starts. I mean, that was like on his splits, man. That was so different than everything else, and I don't know why that is. I'm sure someone will ask him, but June is really a good month for him. And the other thing that was good about that was I'm feeling pretty good about Nova facing the Cubs because they face him in June where he thrives, but he's also 4-2 with a 3.97 ERA in 8 starts against the Cubs and 3-1 at Wrigley Field. And his interleague record is 11-5 with a 3.21 ERA. So there's kind of some real good stuff in there in the middle of June. I really like that. And then some of the I know some people don't like to get hung up on the Cubs, but he's really dominated some of the Cubs' better hitters. Bryant 167, Baez 211, Zobrist. He's faced Zobrist 38 times, and Zobrist is only hitting 158 against him. Russell 231, Schwarber 231. Happ is 4 for 22, but he's hit 3 homers off him. So against the Cubs, that could be a real interesting matchup come June.
You know what I like about that? I like about the fact that he's a 1-year deal. He slides right in there to fill a role until Kopech comes back. And if this just falls apart, you don't get the big free agent signings, we really sit through year 3 of a 3-year rebuild, and you already know in June it's not working out for you. He's going to get hot in June, and he's going to be real tradable.
Yeah.
All right, what about the other guy we got right before? We haven't talked about him. We got Alex Colomé. I was hoping we'd have like 6 moves here during the winter meetings, but I never got to talk to you after Colomé. Anything interesting on him?
Colomé, first pitcher.
I keep calling him by the wrong name. I'm calling him by the wrong name, aren't I?
Well, it's Colomé. I had to look it up on Baseball Reference. They have a little pronunciation guide there, which I point Gene Honda to every once in a while during the regular season. So Colomé, the Sox got him from the Mariners for Narvaez. He's the first pitcher to join the Sox with a save title since Tom Gordon in 2003. When the Sox picked up Gordon in 2003, he had led the AL with 46 saves for the Red Sox in 98. And, of course, Colomé led the AL with 47 saves for the Rays in 2017. And you know what about this guy? He's really versatile. He can be both a setup guy and a closer. I know they got him to be a closer. But last year, he became the first pitcher in Major League history with at least 10 saves and 30 holds in a season. So it's good that they got that guy who's versatile.
And then we did make a minor move for Nick Goins. Is that how you say that? I at least got that right.
Goins, yeah, Goins. Goins, real quick, really good in the Central. 316 at Guaranteed Rate Field, 300 at Detroit, 277 at Cleveland, and 304 at Kansas City. An interesting thing I found out about him, too, he's played every position in his career but catcher and center field. He even pitched one game, and it was back in 2016 in Toronto. He pitched the 18th inning of a 19-inning game against Cleveland, and he got through the inning scoreless, and in the next inning, Darwin Barney, another position player who pitched, got the loss. So this guy Goins could be a 8-position player, just much like Larry could be if they get rid of Larry.
You know what it sounds like what they did is they went out and found themselves a guy that hits really well against their division, can play everywhere, so he's more versatile and can still pitch. Yep. It's like they found Matt Davidson, but with better hitting stats. Instead of Matt just killing the Kansas City Royals, this guy kills everybody in the Central, and he still pitches. He might still be able to do the same thing. I think that's interesting, the comparison, though, when you think about that, where they let go of one guy who wasn't as versatile for another guy that pretty much is the same thing, but might be a little bit better.
Awesome bench play, as they say.
You need those. Now what we need an awesome superstar. Which one do you think it's going to be, Harper or Machado?
I hope it's Harper. I hope it's either of them. I just would love for them to sign one of them. But you know what? The optimist in me says, let's get them both. Why not, right? I mean, we had Robin and Frank at one time and Albert Bell and Frank at one time. Why not Machado and Harper?
I'm hoping that I still have an invite to join you in the scoreboard this year.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, for Sure. Yeah. I'd love to have you up there.
I'm working on Benetti to let me into the booth while he's talking after he was on the show.
He's a really nice guy. And when you're up there with me, you'll see him because we're on the same level.
Yes. That's what I want. I want to randomly bump into Jason Benetti. And then just
Sure.
have him sit there and be like, I thought I'd never see that guy after I did the interview with him, and now he's standing here staring at me.
He wanted to come down to the bar, I heard, right?
He did. He wanted to come down to the bar. He wants Kittle to come down too. I'm trying to organize it. It's a shot in the dark. I probably got about as good a chance of getting Benetti and Kittle in the bar as the White Sox have of getting Machado and Harper. It's possible, but I don't know if they're just playing with me like Scott Boras plays with the White Sox. I'm not exactly sure.
Maybe if Harper and Machado sign with the Sox, that's a good sign for you to see Kittle and Jason down at your bar at the same time.
Forget that. If we get Harper Machado down at my bar, those guys can wait.
That's right. We'll work on that one.
Dave, thank you very much for joining me.
All right. Great talking to you.
It's the middle of the show song. 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 Chris had nothing to put here, so he put this song. It's the middle of the show song.
I wanted to ask you what you think of a theory. James Fox from the Loop Sports joining us here on Sox in the Basement. I would love if you would just tell me what you think of my theory. Is it possible, or am I a crackpot? And just follow me on this, because you sit around and you refresh on Twitter and you nonstop look at every little thing that comes out of the winter meetings, and you start trying to draw some conclusions as to what's going on. Here's the thing: the Chicago White Sox were burned by Scott Boras years ago. Jerry Reinsdorf was very vocal about how he would never do a deal with him again. Now Boras has been saying how he and Jerry are getting along. He had his little meeting in front of the Christmas tree, blocking people from getting to their rooms in the hotel, and he mentioned Jerry and how everything's fine. They have these conversations. But here's my thought, just an idea for you. The White Sox in on Harper, but I'm reading that they haven't technically made an offer yet, that they haven't been authorized to make the money on paper offer, that they're still kind of fleshing it out just like other teams are, but Harper knows they have the money. If that's true, thinking about what's going on with Jerry Reinsdorf and the fact that Manny Machado is coming in a couple of days, is this a smokescreen? Is it possible the White Sox have built so much hype with Harper that they're going to look at this other agent that has Machado, who I've heard all about throughout the meetings, has this rivalry with Scott Boras, and he's going to sit there and they're going to say, we're going to take one of you. It's going to be the first one that wants to jump at this massive contract, and that they'll actually play Boras back.
Yeah, I mean, so the second part's interesting. So, I mean, I'm curious to see how they go about this. I think the interest in Bryce Harper is legitimate, and I think the owner's kind of sucking one up here, taking one for the team to negotiate this deal. Because, regardless of what you think of Bob Nightingale, he throws a lot of stuff out there that isn't true. But he does have a pretty good source in the White Sox organization, and he always has. Now, I look at it and say, anytime you see White Sox information out in the press, there's usually a reason for it. They're really good at playing the media. So what I would say is, when you see stuff like that, where the White Sox it kind of looks like they're tempering expectations for their fans, I don't think that's what it is. I think they're very confident that they have a high offer in, and maybe the highest offer. And whether other teams believe it or not, I think they're, they do the whole we don't think we're going to get him thing, basically telling other teams oh no, you don't need to up your offer, keep your offer the same type thing. I just think that, I don't think Reinsdorf, I know he doesn't want to be used again necessarily. I guess he's not going to come out and say we're front runners, and then have the Dodgers clear up money or something. But I do think they're in an advantageous situation here, because I do believe some of the stuff that Bryce Harper, for whatever reason, does not want to play in Philadelphia. And if that's the case, then I think the Sox do have the highest offer, just from the vantage point of they have the most money. I mean, they can legit throw a 10-year deal for $350 million out there. Some of these other teams can't, or not that they can't, they can do anything. But some of these teams won't do that. I mean, there's all this stuff out there about the Dodgers, the Cubs are strapped, the Yankees apparently aren't interested in Bryce Harper. I mean, he could always go back to Washington. But I think that I think that Scott Boras is having a tough time because he doesn't have like 10 teams that he can just like go to and say that and try to create like his fake bidding war. I think that's the biggest issue. The other interesting part is like Manny Machado is coming in for a visit early next week. If the Harper thing's not resolved and Manny Machado wants to sign that day, like what happens? I mean, that's a really good question.
I think you sign him.
I
mean, even if if your first choice is Harper, you don't want to end up at the end of this thing with nothing, right?
No, I think you're right about that. I think you just don't have a choice then. You just, holy cow, like this, 26-year-old six-war free agent like wants to sign with us. I think you sign him, So, but I mean, I don't know. What's your take on because with Harper, I mean, people that aren't paying attention think it's crazy, right? Like, oh, he's not going to go to the White Sox. There's all these other teams, but like these other teams have issues, man. There's only so many teams in the league that can throw $350 million at this guy, and that's what it's going to take. I mean, signing a 3-4 year deal with somebody, it doesn't make any sense for Bryce Harper, because what if Bryce Harper sucks? What if something happens? You don't automatically get a crack to go back into the market 4 years from now if you're bad. I mean, I know that's not likely, but it could happen. I mean, this thing's going to be a 10-year deal with opt-outs that gives him some power where if he is good, he could opt out of it.
That's an interesting point. And the first thing that popped into my brain, just when I used to do morning radio, I had some great years in there. Like my early on in my career, I was number one. I had people calling me. I had somebody give me a guaranteed contract like I was a baseball player. Like I got brought into Reno, Nevada with a guaranteed contract, which is funny because when the owner came in and decided he wanted to flip the entire station and fired everybody, I laughed because I'm like, you're going to pay me for another year and a half. And then he fired the guy that gave me the guaranteed contract because he was mad at him for doing that. But like even then, when I was on top of things, if I had a bad ratings book or something wasn't going well, that little bit of doubt crept in. Like, hey, have I hit my peak? Am I falling off? What's going on? Bryce Harper's biggest year wasn't last year. And so
it was not.
Right. So you would think to yourself that at some point he might start to fall for the courting that you're getting online where Michael Kopech is tweeting, hey, the number's yours. All you got to do is buy me dinner. And you see all these little things that are happening, like the team and the players are almost starting to court him now. You see him like mention like how much he wants to, like, hey, that's really cool that Nicky Delmonico's playing volleyball at a White Sox beach event. I mean, you're starting to feel this flirtation happening. And here's the thing. I don't take any stock in people. I don't take any stock in Cub fans, first of all, that laugh at the fact that the White Sox would ever be able to get a big free agent. Please, okay? These are all Cub fans that are too young to remember that we used to be the team that always had good players, and they were run by the Wrigley Corporation that never wanted to do anything, okay? Or the Tribune Corporation who never wanted to do anything. So I don't want to hear about that. And then the national media, half the time they forget that we even won the World Series. How many times has ESPN listed all the Chicago championships and left us out? So I think White Sox fans have started to figure that out. Nobody believes in us. So I think this would be such a boon for them. I think the White Sox realize that too. Like, you are going to energize a fan base while you're still not ready technically to compete. And you are going to have bodies in the seats. And I think that's why Jerry Reinsdorf's like, yeah, I'll cut that check. He's a shrewd businessman. He gave Albert Bell a huge contract at the time, right after he had been angry and had been like the guy who basically dug in his heels for the owners in the baseball strike, and then shortly thereafter gives a huge contract out to Albert Bell. He'll spend the money if he thinks it'll make him money.
Oh, for sure. And look, he just got a $50 million check from Major League Baseball Advanced Media. They got a new TV deal coming. Like, the money's there, and people like to look at this and say, oh, $35 million for one player, that's crazy. Look, they consistently ran payrolls in the $110 to $120 million range. It doesn't matter how you get to that number. They're going to have nobody else really making anything. I mean, you sign a Bryce Harper, you might go sign a couple other guys, like a Nelson Cruz or something, whatever.
I think Yasmani Grandal is like the idea, like, we're going to get that guy as our number one catcher if we get Bryce Harper. I think those are the guys you go get.
Makes sense if they get Harper. Yeah. If you listen to Rick Hahn, and I know people are skeptical, and I know they were skeptical before, but they've said this for 2 years. This is what we're doing. Now, were the guys definitely going to come? No. Are they definitely going to come now? No, but I feel a hell of a lot better now than I than I did before. I'll tell you, me and Steve Peredzinski, and he'll love this shout out. Like we on Twitter, we always talked about, man, if this happens, we're gonna have to owe the chairman an apology. So, every day I'll apologize to him every day on Twitter if he gets Bryce Harper. I don't care. That's fine. Like I'll wake up in the morning and pray to Jerry. So what else you got? The exciting Rule 5 draft today? Or
come on. I mean, that was.
I wrote 3,000 words on it.
Right. You were like, this is who the Sox are getting. And then they're like, we're not getting anybody. And then even when they go out and get somebody, it's like Sox. When it was right away when it was announced, it was like likely to be moved. Now they did grabbed up some guy from the Pirates, but I think that was in the minor league.
In the minor league phase.
Yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah, I think basically what Hans said. So, look, I think when you got a chance to grab like a high upside bullpen arm, you just do it. I think his point is, like, if you get like Riley Farrell or whatever right there, he thinks that his Ian Hamiltons and guys like that are better than Riley Farrell, and you're using up a roster spot for no reason. So, whatever.
But you still have Juan Minaya on your team. You still have Juan Minaya on your team, James. As long as Juan Minaya is in your bullpen, you could find a guy in Rule 5 that could do better than him.
We've talked about this. Like they got some fat to trim still off that 40 man. So, sorry to the pride of New Trier, but I mean Charlie Tilson's on that roster. Ian Clarkin's back on that roster. I mean, look, they got stuff they can do. They got moves they can make. But apparently they got bigger fish to fry than the Rule 5, and only nerds like me care about it. So.
I felt bad for you. I honest to goodness, like when it started, I was like, oh man, this has been so hyped. This is great. I got him coming on the show. This is going to be awesome. Yeah. We're going to make a pick. He's going to break it all down. He did everything. And then like nothing. And I was like, no.
Well, the good thing about it is I didn't have to write it up after. So
it saves you.
There's always that. Like I didn't have to do anything after because they didn't add anybody.
Well, I almost didn't do a show tonight because I was like, well, not very much happened after the last one that I did. But then I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, well, I can go sit down in the bar. I can have a beer. The wife and the 13-year-old are arguing with each other all day today. And there's like this screaming back and forth. I heard the 3-year-old, even during this interview, running across the upstairs floor being chased by his mother, who, after he jumped out, I think he jumped out of the bathtub and he was naked running across above my head upstairs. So I'd much rather be doing the show, even if they didn't do anything.
Yeah, makes sense.
Hey, man, thanks so much for coming on again.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right. That's James Fox from the Loop Sports. What's your next big article? You got something you're working on?
Well, I'm trying to get something on Harper and Machado together. I'm trying to take a bunch of quotes and splice them all together and kind of tell Sox fans to just stop freaking out, like after everything that you see. Sorry about that.
Don't worry about it. I have a 3-year-old. You have a puppy.
The roller coaster of emotions that they go on for one news report after another. They're out, they're in, they're out, they're being cheap, they're not being cheap. Oh my God, he's going to just relax. Like it's reached the negotiate through the media stage, which is a good thing because that means it's almost over, I think.
They're in, and you know what they can do that other teams can't do? They can sit there and wait this out as long as it takes, because if they don't get them, it's Harper, Machado, or bust. And they're fine with doing another year of a rebuild and getting the young talent up and suffering through 2019 because their plan was 2020 anyway, and taking a swing at Nolan Arenado, who the Rockies are never going to get signed after he watched the fervor over these two guys. And so they'll sit back and they'll wait.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not like they have to hurry up and get Harper signed, because if he doesn't sign, they got to go sign Michael Brantley. And I'm pretty sure that's not happening. And that's just not going to be in their cards. They're not going to, pay money for short-term upgrades, even though you can make the argument that you might want to be a little bit better, regardless. But, that's fine.
Things I hope we don't have to talk about because we're going to get Harper or Machado.
Pretty much, and I promise I'll come back on when they get one of them. Hopefully it's soon. So
yes, that's awesome. And then also we're already starting to make our Sox Fest plans. So once we've got that all lined up, our intention is to be there. I've been dealing with this awesome promotional company that is we're giving away some free stuff.
Sweet. I'll be there. So.
We're hoping to have some sort of an event out there as well. Dave and I are both going. We're going to share a room with each other. It's going to be a little weird. It's going to, we used to do sleepovers as kids. He's kind of I don't know. He's a weirdo to sleep in the same room with. So, I mean, but we're doing it. So we're coming. Sox and Basement. I can't bring the bar, but I can bring the microphones. We're coming.
Right. One double bed, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, we're going to snuggle.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. It's got us. The way it goes.
It's the only way to stay warm in January.
Another show is wrapped up. Another show's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. And then by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. And we'll see you next week. And the nude is basement. And the nude is basement. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And it's in the books. Another show is wrapped up. Another show is wrapped up. And by the looks, it's gonna be a good one. Nudie's Basement. Broadcast Basement. The Nudie's Basement. The Broad Basement. Slancha. That was like Dropkick Murphys or something, right? I felt like it.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.